Hey everybody, welcome to Coffee with Joe. We're actually recording this on October 29th. We're going to release it a couple of days later because I think Joe may not be around. Anyway, Joe, I've been talking a lot on the last Coffee with Joe, the one for October 29th, and in my articles on economicstability.org about this huge benefit of going to a debt-free money system, the kind of a monetary system we'd have if the reforms in Dennis Kucinich's bill, or if those reforms had been implemented in 1960, we'd have no national debt. Over a period of 10 years between 1995 and 2005, the money supply as measured by M3 increased by $600 billion a year. And my point is, we could have created that money debt-free instead of the way it was created, and that would contribute $600 billion. Maybe that's too much money to create in a year, but it was created during all those years. And that's a $600 billion contribution to the budget of the federal government. It would allow it to do, it wouldn't have had to collect any taxes during all those years, Joe. And the Fed defends itself by saying it remits its profits, its net profits, back to the U.S. government. Last year, Joe, we can link to the report that said the Fed remitted $31 billion back to the U.S. government. So I say the argument for debt-free money is $600 billion a year or $31 billion a year. But Joe, you've said to me when I make that argument, Pete, you're right, but that ain't the half of it. That's not.
Well, first of all, the 31 billion, let's take that, let's remember that they're not giving us 31 billion in profits. They're giving us back 31 billion that we just gave them. And by the way, they collected a whole lot more than 31 billion, but 31 billion of what we sent them, they gave back to us. Okay. But the other side of it, Pete, is taking the bankers out of the creation of money. And that's all you're going to do. Just take the bankers out of the creation of money. The money's going to be created. It's going to be deposited in the bank. Now, if money's going to be lent out, okay, it's going to be the depositor's money that gets lent. That's a really huge change in the socioeconomic, democratic, political system that we have. Why? Because today, the banks use that trickle-down money power, and they take that money power and they use it and they decide, well, we're not going to spend money on this year. We're going to spend money on this year. And by the way, we talked about the amount of speculation that's going on. Okay, that's 600 billion. Where's it going? What's a derivative? What's a credit default swap? What's a collateralized debt obligation? What's a future or a hedge or what are the? Pete, do you think that if the depositors were the source of the money, up from the bottom, placing it into the money system, and then, providing that to the bankers, you think the bankers would be lending money for that kind of stuff? Any banker, any investment banker, anybody? The answer is absolutely not, Pete. So we would transform the socioeconomic system in this country to one where the main driver of what happens with the money supply is the depositor. Now, I have my money in, my local bank. I care what my local bank. If I'm in a savings, if I'm in a situation where my bank is lending money, lending that money out, I care about where that bank is lending money. I'm not gonna tell them how to do it, but I care about it because they're going to be lending real money. They're going to be lending my real money and your real money and my neighbor's real money. They're going to be lending our real money. Is that benefit going to come back to me, to us, to our community, to our state? I'm going to care about that. And Pete, if it doesn't, I'm going to take my money somewhere else. Okay? And if I take my money somewhere else, then those people that made the wrong decisions are going to pay for making the wrong decisions. And their stockholders, okay, are going to be losing the benefit of having access to my money. Pete, when we transition to debt-free money, government-issued debt-free money, the depositor is going to be the strongest player in the economic stream of events. Now they're going to have to draw in the depositors. And I see that manifesting itself in a lot of ways, okay? A transition probably to more credit unions, because credit unions are places where they acknowledge that it's their people's money that they're investing, and cooperative banks, you know, another level up from credit unions, and then to community banks, because quite frankly, people don't really want to have their money in the huge a branch of the huge regional banks, Pete. They don't. People really want to know their banker. They want to know what the banker is doing. You know, they want there to be a community relationship between the banker and the person who uses the bank. So the benefits of the transition, you know, beyond having just the just no national debt and state debts reduced. Pete, states are only paying once, you know, for the bridges and the schools they build, for the roads that they build. You know, just imagine what that does to the states in terms of their debts, and then you translate that down into the community and personal level. Like I was just saying, we will have, in my opinion, a totally different, democratically controlled, I'm going to say user-controlled, deposit user-controlled socioeconomic system, Pete. It will be something completely different, and we will all benefit from it. So that, to me, is what I mean when I say, you know, that just not having the national debt ain't the half of it, you know, and getting the 31 billion back from the Fed is really a joke.
We wouldn't have had to collect as much in taxes during all those years, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's means that capitalism can work. Everybody agrees that capitalism works better the lower taxes are, right? We're all in favor of low taxes, right?
Absolutely. You know, the need to tax, you know, would be significantly, you know, reduced with a government creating the money that's needed when it adopts a budget, Pete. And when I say by that, I mean, you know, that there's a mechanism there to identify the amount of money that's going to be created when you adopt a budget. That's how that would work. And by definition, that money creation is a reduction in the amount of taxes that has to be brought in. So yeah, people, if you know, it's one of the things about the Austrians and the libertarians and the true conservatives, Pete, and I mean that. You know, they don't like all this government activity, and you know why? Because I'm paying for it. You know, and guess what? You know, if we did it differently, you know, do they really mind that we have a government program that does all these things if it doesn't come back and they don't have to pay for it, you know, through their taxes? Well, certainly to whatever degree we can enable that, they would have good reason to support it as opposed to oppose that government program.